What's up, guys? We got one for you today. We have a subject that is near and dear to my heart. This is what I spent my college career doing, was learning how to be an educator. And this lady is freaking out because obviously, with what Elon is doing with Doge and the scrutiny coming down on the Department of Education, um, there's a lot of talk about them just getting rid of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch this video, and then I asked Grok very simply, what does the Department of Education actually do? Okay, so that we can go through and actually break it down. And then I'm going to give us an actual solution on how to fix this because it's very, very simple. And keep in mind, guys, I went to school. I squeezed a 4-year degree into 5.5 because I'm really, really smart. That being said, I did get through all the curriculum for a business ed minor or major with a phys ed and a coaching minor from an accredited university in Michigan. So, what I want to do is actually go through this, use my experience, and use why I literally didn't become a teacher as the reason to solve this problem outside of the obvious, which is my mouth, right? So, let's go through. Let's watch Miss Randy here. I don't know if it's a Miss or a Mrs., but who cares?
Who's taking it? Are they trying to take that money that kids get for tax cuts for billionaires? What's going on? That's why we have to see what they're doing. It is illegal to take that money out of children's mouths and give it to billionaires.
Now, are there areas you think that could be improved or streamlined?
Oh, my God. My members, remember, Al Shanker actually didn't want a Department of Education. He wanted it to stay, one of my predecessors, he wanted to stay within Health and Human Services, HEW, because he thought it was more important to have the whole child focused on. So, of course, there are ways to fix the bureaucracy. Of course, there are ways to make things better. I mean, Elizabeth Warren just found millions of dollars of savings that could happen if people work together. But my point is this, and you just said it. States and localities run education. That's where 90% of the funding for education goes. They already run it. They should run it. The federal government should not run it. But if we want to try and make things better, like having different kinds of pathways for kids in terms of career and tech ed, the states and localities have not done this. I was a teacher at an AP history teacher in a career tech ed school in the 90s. We have to change. We have to make these pathways available. So if someone who, like Linda McMahon and I, happen to agree on something like this, you need federal policy to be able to push this. Let's outcompete the world. We need education to do that. We need to have a Department of Education to do that and lean into that.
Well, Randy Weingarten, thank you.
She literally just made the worst argument for her own job I may have ever heard in my life. If you listen to what she said, she basically just said, 90% of the funding comes from state and local anyway, which it does. That's what your tax dollars go to. In Florida, if you don't know, and I'm sure this is probably a common thing, but a lot of the lotto money goes to school funding as well, right? Now, again, I don't know the I don't know the percentage. I don't know how it actually works, but that's what I was told, right? So again, I haven't obviously looked into how that exactly gets funded and if it's actually legit or not. But that's what we're told, right? Is hey, if you're doing the local lotto and the state lotto, that money does go to schools anyway. So you lose, you still win, right? Not really, but kind of. Now, here's the problem: is teachers are paid through local and state funding. They're not federal. So what I did was I looked up what exactly does the Department of Education do? Because remember, basically since they founded it, the education level of America as it comes to ranking versus other countries has dropped significantly. And we can ask Grok. Let's ask that to Grok real quick. What is America's ranking in education throughout the world? Let's see what we find. Is a topic of debate. Oh, so 28th out of 37, 12th in science, 6th in reading. Okay, 28th out of 37. So we suck. Okay, so we are in the bottom half, but we're the greatest country on earth, right? According to everybody. Okay, so this is what the Department of Education does, guys. If you read through this, basically there's some federal Pell Grants and there's things like that. Here's the thing with a lot of these things is Pell Grants are limited so low versus the price of actual college that Pell Grants are basically worthless. Okay. So let's say that you're spending $20,000 a year on school and you can get a Pell Grant for $2,500. Great. Cool. Thanks for that 10% grant. Right. Also, student loans. Here's the fun thing about student loans: you cannot declare bankruptcy on them. So when you go to school, and I know this because I'm still paying mine. Okay. When you go to school for X amount of years, you can never, ever, ever, no matter what you do, get out of that money. It is the only money on earth that you cannot declare bankruptcy on is student loans. Okay, so if you go to school for 4 years for, I don't know, gender studies, and then you realize that, oh, no one gives a crap about that degree because it's completely worthless, and you go get a job at Starbucks making 40 grand a year, oh, well, you still have to pay back your loans, right? Now, there's some solutions to this that have been talked about. There's some solutions to this that I can go through, but basically, that's that point of it. I want to stick to this topic. They did the Every Student Succeeds Act, right, which is just replaced No Child Left Behind. If you don't remember No Child Left Behind, it was basically the biggest failure in all of education, and so that's why they renamed it. And then everything else is basically civil rights and inclusion and special needs, right? And it's just federal policies for that. Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be federal policies on special education and helping those particular groups of people, right? Like, I'm not saying anything against that. The problem is this can all be done at state level, and most of it is. So basically, we have this huge department that costs us billions of dollars. Like this lady, she makes over $500,000 a year. Obviously, she did not buy a Peloton with any of that money, okay? But she did buy a lot of cold cuts, all right? But we're going to leave that alone. So she's making $500,000 a year fighting for this, while the average teacher makes $44,000 a year. Now, when I went to school, okay, to become a teacher, okay, mainly because I wanted to coach. I wanted to coach football. That's basically what I wanted to do. And the only way to do that was to become a teacher. And then, from there, it is what it is. But I was going to school. I got all the way through all the classes. I got to student teaching, right? I got to the whatever they call it. I don't remember. There's another one that you do before that. It was forever ago because I'm old, right? But basically, I got in and I loved the kids. The kids I loved. I loved the students. To be honest, I did mine in a more of an, they call it an urban school setting, right? But those kids, and then I also did a phys ed class every week with girls from a juvenile home who, and you know what? To be honest, we got along great. They loved me. I loved them. It was a great thing that we had going because I understood them as people, and I didn't really care about the politics of school. What made me stop was not the students. It was going into the break room in between for lunch and listening to the other teachers talk and listening to the politics and talking to my home teacher about, is that actually how this is in schools, and then calling other teachers from my high school where I went and other teachers that I knew from around different areas in the state to find out, is this really what it's like to be a teacher? And they all said the same thing. Yes. And imagine a group of people basically that have never been out of the system, right? So they went to school their entire life, and then they went to college to go back into school and then teach the next generation of school. They have never experienced reality, the outside world at all. And so the optics of what they think and the viewpoints that they hold are completely, for the most part, obviously it's not 100%, right? But the majority are completely disconnected from reality. They have no idea what the real world is like. And because of that, they have no skills, right? So there's that old saying, right? If you can't teach, right? Like there's that old saying, and that's extremely common in the entrepreneurship space, right? But at the end of the day, basically, if you're a teacher and you've been a career teacher and you didn't get that break in between college where you went and did like a work study, or you went and did, hey, I worked at this career for 15 years and then I went back and I started teaching, et cetera. Like if you didn't have that and you went straight from one into the other, your viewpoint of the world is so warped beyond reality that you have no idea what it is. And so there's a few fixes to this, right? There's a few easy fixes to this. Now, I am 100% in favor, just so we're clear. I'm 100% in favor of cutting the Department of Education completely. All right. If your job is to make the education of our country better, and you're a federal organization that is responsible for that, and you have declined since being formed, you have failed at your job, right? If you were 10th when you started and they said, hey, we want you to get us to number one. What are we going to do? Oh, well, we're going to do this and this and this and this and this. Cool. You got 2 decades to do it. Awesome. We can do that. 2 decades later, I come back and I say, hey, we've given you billions of dollars. How's it going? Are we number one? No. Well, we got to be in the top 5, right? No. Are we still 10th? No. Well, of the 37 overdeveloped countries, where are we ranked? We're 28th. Any single person who had a job, who's had a real job, right? If you went into that job and they gave you $1 million salary to take them to a certain place, and they came back a year later to check on you to see if you were at the place or further than the expectation that was required. And not only were you not even the same, you were in the bottom 10%, or in the bottom 10 as opposed to the top 10. Do you think you would keep that job? No. No is the answer. You would be fired on the spot and probably charged with theft at some point. Right now, we can't do that because in our country, theft is just called taxation and we do it every day. Right. But in the real world, this is not acceptable. Right. But these people who are teachers, again, they're just trying to save their own ass. And I get it. Right. Like survival of the organism is number one, right? Like the organism's first job is to survive. So if you make $500,000 a year and they want to cut your program that pays you the $500,000 a year, trust me, you're fighting. And hey, more power to you. But when we look at the facts, they have not succeeded in any way whatsoever. Okay, there is zero. As a matter of fact, you go to most of these schools who are public or charter, and I know because I have kids that are in them. Okay, I'm not telling you this from conjecture, but I can tell you the difference between public education and private education is unbelievable. Even the terms that they use for grades now, there's no A, B, C, D, E, or A, B, C, D, F. There's no pass fail. It's needs improvement or exemplary or still working, right? Because they have to have all these terms that don't damage the child. What happened to telling the child, hey, dipshit, do you want to be a janitor the rest of your life? You want to be a fucking winner? Maybe you should learn how to do fucking math. Right? We can't talk like that to kids because heaven forbid, right? And again, this is why I didn't make it that far. Because I would tell them, okay? And to be honest, when we were doing phys ed, 3 of the girls who were, and remember, they were in jail and they would let them out to come hang out with us for an hour twice a week. And that was my job. My job was to hang out with them. They hated my professor. They hated him. They wouldn't listen to him for anything. They would get in fights. 3 of them were pregnant. They would have stabbings. A lot of them didn't have parents. Like these were bad off kids, all girls. Okay. And I've been this size in college, I was bigger. Right? Like in college, I was a big old monster. I was a natural bodybuilder. But I was the same size, right? So, but at the end of the day, they came and befriended a big, bald, toxic masculinity looking motherfucker like me because of one reason. And the reason was I didn't care about if they learned how to play dodgeball. I cared that they learned how to fucking get over the shit that they had going on in their life. And I said, hey, yeah, that happened to you. What are you going to do about it? And one of the girls came up to me and she was like, no one's ever asked me that before. And how fucked up is it that we have an entire system that doesn't just ask, hey, yes, you've been through some shit, but what are you going to do about it? Because you can keep doing this and be a fucking loser the rest of your life, or you can be the story of someone who won. And the problem is these people have so many rules around the rules around the rules to protect feelings and to do all this shit. And that's what the Department of Education does. Go read through all this crap. It's all it is inclusion and talk and bullshit and rhetoric. That's what it is. It doesn't actually provide any value. Okay? Cut the whole fucking thing. Put it in the hands of the states. Because you know what? If your state sucks at education, guess what's going to happen? They're either going to elect better people who are going to fix it, or people are going to leave the state. That's called consequence and accountability, which is something that Big Don is trying to bring back in a real way. And I'm here for it in every aspect. But the solution to this is simple. If teachers got paid $250,000 a year, we could just take this funding and literally pay for all of that. We could take the money that we gave to fucking Ukraine and pay for all of this, as well as armed guards in every school. But no, Gaza needs condoms. Right? This is the shit where we should be sending our tax money to. Not $1,200 paper cups for the Air Force, not $3,000 a week for Starbucks cinnamon cups, not Ukraine, not Africa, none of that shit. This is a problem that we can solve with a fraction of that money. And the problem is we solved none of them. And imagine if we took ourselves from 28th to 20th. How much smarter would our kids be? And then from 20th to 18th, right? And these are the incremental goals that we should have for whoever's in charge of education at the state level is, hey, state, this is where we are in the state's rankings. How do we move up? How do we become a top 10 state? And you should get federal funding if you can become a top 10 state to do really cool shit. There's a lot of things you could do to award these things, but if you pay teachers $250,000 a year, who's applying to be a teacher? Fucking everybody. Who's going to school to be a teacher? The smartest people on earth. If you told me right now, hey, you could sell all your shit, you're going to have millions in the bank, you can go be a teacher and a football coach, we'll pay you $250,000 a year. Done. Done. I'd do that 10 days out of 10. And then when my kids were out of school, I'd retire and I'd be done. Right? And that would be the rest of my plan. I'd go retire in Napa. You'd never see me again. I'd be on a farm with a dog and a shotgun and 17 barrels of wine in the back. Don't come after 4 p.m. I'll be hammered and I won't know which one you are. Okay? That's all I'm saying is this is an easy solution to this problem that we already spend the money on. We just don't give it to the right people because, again, it doesn't fill pockets of the people who are in charge. When it comes to education, this is what we should be doing. This is the easy fix, and this is what's going on. And if you don't believe me, go research the rankings of our education system since the Department of Education was put in place, and how much money we've spent on that department, right? And then say, what could that money have done better? Did that project work? And if the answer is no, then you have only one solution. Cut the fucking project. It's been enough time. They've had plenty of leash. They've had plenty of opportunity. The thing doesn't work. So at what point do you cut the thing that doesn't work? Now is the time. Let's go play some games.